The Round Table has accepted a challenge to find out what it can about an island called HY Brazil, just off Ireland, 200 miles or so. It's got some specifics. Even before it got underwater, it had some difficulties in locating it. It had some specifics, Bob. Yes, you could not see it but once every 7 years, and you couldn't get to it. But there are reports that that is not true. Recent. And when you think of this in terms of how you would go about tracking down Atlantis versus this, you've got much more to go on. Absolutely. So, I wouldn't even waste your time trying to track down Atlantis. That's just too far away, too long gone. But this might be something we could find, and according to reports, Bob, it's a lot like Atlantis. Absolutely. The reports indicate it could very well be the same thing as Atlantis. But of course, we don't know. We'll have to find out. All right, so Frank is going to read about the maps. Nautical charts. Bob, why don't you read it? All right, so we're going to study the appearance of HY Brazil on maps. Nautical charts identified an island called Brasil, that's spelled with a C, west of Ireland in the Atlantic Ocean as far back as 1325. That was from a Portolan chart by Angelina Dawson. It later appeared as an Insula de Brasil in the Venetian map of Andrea Bianco in 1436, attached to one of the larger islands of a group of islands in the Atlantic. This was identified for a time with the modern island of Terceira in the Azores. A Catalan chart of about 1480 labels two islands, Ilha de Brasil, one to the south west of Ireland and where the mythical place was supposed to be, and one south of Ilha Verde on Greenland. On maps, the island was shown to be circular, often with a central strait or running river east to west across its diameter. Despite the failures of attempts to find it, this appeared regularly on maps lying southwest of Galway Bay until 1865, by which time it was called Brasil Rock. There are Catalan maps from 1375, a Para race map from 1513, a map of Europe from 1570, an Abraham Ortiz map of Europe from 1595, and so there are that many maps showing this place as an island. Well, now we got to get to, Bob, the idea that no one can get to it. And so now, let's see how any history of searches might have gone. Expeditions left Brazil in 1480 and 1481 to search for the island, and a letter written by Pedro de Ayala shortly after the return of John Cabot from his expedition in 1497. Reports that land found by Cabot had been discovered in the past by the men from Bristol who found Brazil. In 1674, Captain John Nisbet claimed to have seen the island when on a journey from France to Ireland, stating that the island was inhabited by large black rabbits and a magician who lived alone in the stone castle. Yet the character and the story were simply a literary invention. So we don't have anything to go on as far as searches. There's very little that we can find that we can actually reference someone who was there. Well, Bob, it looks like we've sort of hit a rabbit hole here. It's like everything seems to be leading to myth, and I don't know. I think we should go a little further, but I'm sort of thinking that maybe it's more of a myth than a reality. Let's see if there's any just mention of it in just general culture. A lot of books written about it. There's a film called Eric the Viking, where the characters must travel to HY Brazil to obtain a magical horn. Okay, that supposedly led to a bad end, but that's all myth. There's some further reading that we have not. Anybody want to really read on it? There's a book by Barbara Freitag, HY Brazil, The Metamorphosis of an Island from Cartographic Era to Celtic Elysium by Amsterdam and Rodopi Press. Sean Lynch in 2010, Preliminary Sketches for the Reappearance of HY Brazil Utopian Studies. Those are books that are listed as sources to know more. So I guess we could pursue this just a little more. Pop culture seems to have pretty much gone back to legend. These maps are just maps. Let's see if we can find out anything else about this island. I'm intrigued by the fact that it was named after a great king or a god of sorts. Yeah? So maybe how did it get its name? And it's from Ireland, so let's study that. The etymology of the names Brasil and HY Brazil is unknown, but in Irish tradition it's thought to come from the Irish HY Brasil, meaning descendants clan of Brisale, and that's one of the ancient clans of the northeastern Ireland. Old Irish, BRES, beauty, worth, great and mighty. Those are sort of, despite the similarity, the name of the country Brazil, also spelled Brazil, has no connection to the mythical islands. Although J.R. Tolkien's essay on fairy stories has likened both together. More myth. Okay, we don't have to get into how Brazil is named, but is odd that it's named the same thing, but for different reasons, and it seems really odd because it doesn't sound Irish. So now you're getting into possibilities that it possibly was somewhere else. Doesn't really jive because Brazil would be a relatively modern name and no geological things have happened, but it does portend to Jeff's concept of it being on ley lines and it being an enchanted place. Possibly enchanted must be understood as possibly entering to other dimensions, and some wizard has created himself at least a paradise. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. And I think Jeff should study that more. Well, we'll have to see if we can find something out about that part of it, what it does in the terms of here's something that we could study. HY Brazil never existed. However, it was often shown on maps of a very small island west of Ireland. The name HY BRASIL originated from Celtic mythology according to Irish folklore. In Irish